Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing well, Sergey. Thank you for having me.
For those of our viewers that are not familiar, Jim Flint is one of the leading experts on car dealer and digital marketing in the United States. And he is also an author of a best-selling book, which is called Car Dog Millionaire in the United States. But we had an honor of translating it and publishing it in Russia. It's called a little different. Do you have that book in there?
Yeah, I do, right here. In fact, I don't know if you can see it on
That's
the camera.
it. I can see it perfectly fine. That's the book that we published, and it received good reception in Russia. And Russian Association of Automotive Dealers has asked if we can have an interview, and Jim graciously agreed to share his valuable knowledge with us. So, Jim, we really appreciate your time and willingness to have this interview. We have a few questions.
No, I'm excited to be here. I really am.
We're excited to have you here. I have a few questions that we prepared, and I will run them by you. The first question is actually may not sound like a modern question, but there are two types of marketing from what generally. There is a transactional marketing, which is sort of going after a new customer, and there is a relational marketing, which is working with your existing customer base. There are a lot of new trends, new technologies, and new techniques of working with marketing. Could you tell us if what do you think about transactional marketing and relational marketing? What do you feel is more important, and what would you highlight for each one of them?
You know, one of the things I try to do is quantify as much as I possibly can. And directionally, it's helpful. So there's a lot of analytics. I think there's kind of an art and science to the marketing that we do. And so that comes into play in this instance. The one thing I look at is I think of my existing customer base and how many of those I want to have come back to my dealership. And when I look at how many people are involved on the service drive, right, it's called a 7-year UIO, units in operation. And so when I look at that, I think I want for every one of those customers that I have that is just about to move out of that 7-year UIO, which typically means they're going to replace that vehicle, right? So whatever your make, your model, your market, if you know how long a car is supposed to be in service, I want to make sure that my existing customers create new buying opportunities for me. So if I take good care of them, I would think at a minimum, right? If it's a 7-year UIO that is measured, units in operation, and meaning cars that come back to my dealership and get serviced, I would think 14%, 15% of those would roll off every year. And so I would want to make sure that because I have all the email information about my customers typically, right? Or I have some way to know if a former customer bought a replacement vehicle, I would want at least 15% of my business at a minimum to come from that particular aspect of taking care of my customers. Because, you know, if I do this right, not only are they buying additional vehicles from me, but I'm monetizing their experience with me, and I'm maintaining profitability on the service drive. The other 85% of customers, and I think we have to be radically honest here, because customers are not necessarily loyal in their purchase of the vehicle. So what they bought 4 years ago, they may be looking for something new. So I routinely expect like 85% of our business to be coming from new acquisitions. So in that regard, those may not be exactly right for your make, your model, your market, but at least it's kind of a foundational way to look at, am I taking care of my existing customers in such a way that they come back to me? And am I looking out to find new opportunities are? And I think that's a really good way to balance the efforts that you make in terms of how you advertise.
Jim, let me make sure that I got this correctly. First of all, I want to note that you take a 7-year period as a count for units in operation. Some manufacturers count 5, some count 10, but you take 7 years. That's fine. But the number that you said, 15%, that's that sounds really low if you take that as a loyalty level of loyalty. I mean, I think that Toyota has like 50% loyalty, Subaru is 60% or something like that, and you are saying you expect only 15% of customers to come back. Where's this number coming from? I never heard that number that low. Please explain.
Sure. No, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I don't want to make things too complex, right? It's actually the number of years. It's 1 divided by 7. So each of those 7 years, I should have my existing customer base rolling off into a vehicle through me, right? And that's done through effective communication with my existing customer database. And so that's one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. I think one divided by 7 is 15%. So that's where I'm coming up with that number. So if you're on a 5-year UIO replacement schedule, maybe your number's 20%. And if it's, a 10-year UIO, your number's 10%. But at least directionally speaking, it gets my wheels engaged in terms of how I want to bring, and I should be thinking about this, right? How do I take customers and bring them back to me? And, part of that process too is I'm looking at the privacy laws that Facebook and Google are having to deal with throughout the world. And that valuable first-party data, as Google moves away from third-party cookies, is going to be the thing that sets people apart as we move forward in this world. So as you have to, more now than ever before, the ones that are going to win not only this month and next month and this year and next year, but well into the future, are the dealers that start taking care of their data and realizing what a valuable asset it is to have that. It is not something to be taken lightly or given away to other parties, because that's your valuable customer information. And so I think that's really the focus there, is how much of who it is that I currently have can I convert and keep as future customers.
I see. Now I understand exactly where the 15% coming from. It's not 15% returning customers to buy a car. It's 15% of the 7-year units in operation, which makes a lot of sense.
For your dealership.
For the dealership, yes. Let me just quickly expand. You mentioned the relational portion of the marketing, which is going after your own customers. The transactional marketing, which is bringing new customers, is that important? Do you put value to it, or this is something that comes naturally?
Oh no, I think transactional has to be the biggest piece of your business. I mean, that's why dealerships are very good at promoting, their place of business. They've got to keep their name out in front of their customers. It's very important too, if there's a promotional period, whether it's a holiday, a manufacturer sales event, a special discount for a limited time offer. I mean, those are important things to put out in front of customers routinely, because let's say a limited percentage of those customers are in the market at any given time. It's okay to put that message out routinely and consistently, so that they know that when it's time to buy from you. And so I think that's important to stay out in front of customers. To me, the ability to bring on new customers is that allows your dealership to grow, your profitability to grow, your customer base to grow. It's all about growth.
So just to summarize, it has to go hand in hand. Neither direction can be ignored. Each one has to be optimized. You have to work with your existing customer base to make sure a good portion of them comes back and provides service opportunities. But you also have to go after the new customers, and combined, that provides a good customer base for sales and service.
Absolutely. In fact, I would have a metric that would measure the percentage of either, right? In total, of all the transactions I do in a given month, how many of those transactions are coming from the existing database, and then how many are coming from transactional or acquisitional side of things in terms of new customers. So how many return customers do I have? How many new customers do I have? And what's that as a percentage? Is it 20%? Is it 30%? And then my goal is to just keep moderating my advertising and marketing efforts, knowing that tracking it back to some kind of source, some sort of cause, some connected element of the advertising is what is ultimately going to help me spend my money more efficiently over time, and to help me monetize it more effectively over time.
That's a good. Actually, it's an interesting thing that you mentioned, that every month you would want to implement the metric of comparing new customers versus existing customers. And the second question comes naturally. I read your book, obviously, and in your book, you put a big you devote significant amount of time to end-to-end analytics and the evaluation of the effectiveness of different marketing channels. And there's a lot of information in the book about that, and obviously can't cover this all in the interview, even if we wanted to. But if you could highlight 1, 2, 3, just some most important things that dealers have to pay attention to within the framework of tracking the effectiveness of the market channels that they use, what would you say? What would you highlight?
So I like to run analysis quite often and try to turn things, the data into numbers, numbers into information. And I spoke at the National Automobile Dealers Association a few years ago on this particular topic. And what I found, importantly, is that volume predicts volume. So in order to sell more vehicles, you have to have more vehicles. And I know that sounds intuitive, but in a time where there are chip shortages and production limitations, I think that's a very important thing to consider. The next piece of the puzzle, right, in terms of correlation to vehicle volume, is the number of salespeople that you have. There are certain limitations that any one individual can have in terms of their volume. I hear a lot of stories about the guy who sold 20, 25, 30, or my guys, they sell 15, 18, cars a month. But based on my statistical analysis, because you have the good ones, the great ones that we talk about and we hear the stories of, we also have some mediocre performers, and then we have some less than performers. In general, you can calculate that they're going to be 8 to 10 vehicle sales per person on your sales staff per month. So those are the kind of two key fundamentals. And it sounds obvious, but for people that are looking in the mirror and trying to figure out why aren't they selling more cars, you have to ask yourself, do I have enough units available to me? And then do I have enough people on my staff to take care of the customers who I can bring in? And once you have those two things said, now we start getting into the advertising and marketing. Because if you're not operationally ready, then you might as well not spend a penny. And when I look at what came next, right, this is where the eyes start to open. And it was actually the activity that occurred for dealerships in the US on the vehicle display pages. These are the pages that display the units that the dealership has the ability to sell. So on new cars, there's certain levels in terms of vehicle display pages. On used cars, because there's typically more photos available of those particular units, there's a higher level of activity. But in general, as people look at the units that you sell and that number increases, it's more highly correlated to your actual vehicle sales count at the end of the month. And so, if you break it down real quick, in summary, the three keys, right, are first, units availability, second, personnel to support, and third, how many of them can I get to look at the vehicles online that I have the ability to sell? And those three things are the leading predictors in terms of vehicle volume.
It's interesting. You actually summarized it for me. The volume, the inventory, how many cars you have in stock, whether it's new or used, the sufficient amount of salespeople, and realistically, you're saying that the number to expect is 8, 10. There are superstars. There are so, but
that's
8,
right.
8, 10. So, and the next thing to do once you have ensured that you have enough vehicles for your planning volume and enough salespeople for your planning volume, the next thing to do is make sure that the vehicles are properly advertised online and track the vehicle display pages activity.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the key considerations down that path to me is the photos of the vehicle. We work with different vendors and partners. If you think you're advertising a vehicle on one of the classifieds like autotrader.com or cars.com, but your pictures are not up, you're really not going to get the visibility that you could otherwise be earning. And so without pictures, people are not as likely to shop you. Without shopping, they're less likely to buy from you. So those two things are very connected. If you want to be operationally efficient in your advertising, you got to get those photos up quickly. And the ones that win, right, in terms of turning their inventory more quickly are the people that are able to get, instead of getting, like I was just working with a dealer and he has 20 units that have no pictures and they've been in his inventory for more than 15 days. So you have to have some standard at your store I like to think that it shouldn't take more than 7 days for a vehicle to have photos taken and that information positioned adjacent to it in the classifieds. Because without that information next to it, you might as well not even have it up there. There may be the random story of a vehicle that sold without pictures next to it, but in terms of the visibility it gets, in terms of the consideration set that it commands, it's very, very, very limited. So making sure you get pictures faster to market helps you sell faster to the market.
There are dealers that actually put pictures before the car leaves the auction facilities. I'm sure that there are some people who get it really, really fast. They're really responsible about that.
No, and that is one of the biggest delays that are out there, right? You get a car from auction, it takes a couple days or weeks to get it sent to you, then it sits on your lot, then you realize there's a repair order that needs to occur, then you actually don't have the photographer come out until 11 or 12 days later. So I would say that if you could get the auction house, even if it costs you, I don't even know what they would charge you, but if you could get them to photo the vehicles, or you could utilize photos from them and at least have that up as a minimum, that would be a huge advantage, not only for you against the competition, but really in terms of achievement of you operationally at a dealership getting better than you were before.
Well, there are no car auctions in Russia, but in a sense they are in the United States. But the importance of getting the pictures as soon as possible is obvious. While we're on the pictures, quick question for you. Can there be too little or too many pictures? What's the balance? Is there actually such a thing as too many pictures?
I believe that that can be the case. And let me give you a really good example. We have pronounced seasonality here in Texas, and I've seen pictures in Seattle. And so if you have too many pictures when the pictures that you are taking and that are showing up today are from a season ago. So like if right now, because it's really, really hot, we were talking about this, but if you had pictures from the winter and there was snow in the background, you would really have a picture that doesn't look appropriate to the situation, and you're going to be putting up a psychological hurdle to the customer in terms of what it is that they are considering to buy. They're like, no, that was totally last season. I don't know why they had that old picture. I don't want to see it. So when you have that kind of a picture, that's a little bit too much. And I'll even say this, sometimes you can be in season. Again, it's very hot right now. And so if your photographer has a car out in the sun and they've turned the air conditioning on, and there's a puddle of water from the condensation that comes off the air conditioning unit, which is very normal, right? But it looks like there's a puddle of water underneath the photo that you're taking. The customer who's considering that as a purchase could think, oh, that car's leaking oil, right? So you kind of have to scrutinize the imagery that you're portraying, because if you don't do that, the customers are going to they're going to come to their own conclusions. And what you don't want to have is them thinking the pictures are old, or thinking that the product is broken, or thinking that the car is dirty.
I see. So you have to be careful with the pictures. You have to think through that, once you take the picture, look at it yourself. What would you where would you like to, where you could have criticized it if you were a customer? Next question, Jim, it's specific to Russia.
Okay.
In Russia, car dealers, for whatever reason, which is beyond my understanding, they're very leery about using email for communication with the customer, for advertising. And many people that I spoke with, they say that the email doesn't work, people don't read it, they don't open it. And it is my understanding that the email channel is a pretty successful, if not one of the main channels of communicating with the customer in the United States. So, and this might be a big opportunity, big untapped opportunity in Russia. So, let's just take it as a fact that email is heavily used in the United States, so we don't need to go into that. But what are the key, what is the key, or what are the keys to successful use of the email?
So I will tell you that there are difficulties in the US with email. And I think it goes down this path, and it may be comparable in Russia. And it's that our dealerships have databases, sometimes with 30, 50,000. If they've been keeping track of things, 250,000 records, all tied back to the email addresses of their customers. And so I think when you have things in abundance, you don't value them accordingly, because in the US, you can send out an email blast to your CRM, right? Your customer relation database. And so because you can do that, there's not a great value in the acquisitional piece of the puzzle, kind of what we talked out at the beginning of this interview. And so as I look at that, the thing that dealerships should look at is what is their existing amount of information. And here's the light bulb that can go on, that can change the conversation completely. And it's this: your emails have the best available information about customers, not because of your database, right? But because of the behavior that customers have online. And what I do with the email databases, you upload them, and this goes to the first party data consideration set. I can upload this information, all these email addresses, put it into Facebook, right? Put it into Google. And now I've got the identities and the behaviors of what Facebook and Google know, so that I can better advertise not only to my existing customers, but there's so much incredible value to take this existing customer base and say, you know what? Exclude them from the advertising, but I want to advertise to people that look just like this, right? And so on Facebook, they know where you've been, they know what you like, they know who you're friends with, they know your geography. And so in that regard, emails are the catalyst, emails are the bridge to the first party data solution. And that's where dealers played right can have a tremendous advantage. So if they see it as devalued, I believe it's because it's in abundance. But if they want to add value to the equation, just look at what is going to happen when we're in this cookieless world that Google is promising, right? Because Google now kind of gives our tracking information out to everybody, right? Because of the agreements we make when we go through the web browsing experience. But, you know, a year from now, that information won't be available, and we're going to be dependent on first party. So the great opportunity, the great excuse, right, is I can market to people that look like my known buyers. And so I am utilizing my advertising spend much more efficiently when I use detail of my known customers. Even if I choose not to advertise to them, I can advertise to a lookalike. And that's where the power is going to be.
So the key, let me just summarize it. The key to successful use of email is not to grab a massive 100,000 emails and just shoot them, whatever marketing campaign that you have. You have to understand, do the most amount of research, who the customer is, what are their trends, and custom tailor the message that is sent to this customer, what they, if this, you know, tailored to their behavior, tailored to their needs, and that is the key to successful email use.
Yeah. Let me add to that. The most important thing on your email blast is subject line. That's what determines whether or not somebody opens it. So, free. If something is free, like buy 3 tires, get the 4th free, those open rates are really good. If it's buy 3 oil changes, get the 4th free. And I'm not trying to go down the service path, but I'm giving you an idea. On the sales side, right, it's that this particular sales event with 0% APR ends July 4th, or this event ends Labor Day weekend or August 31st, or whatever the particular promotional holiday might be. So that subject line then predicts open rate. It's without a doubt the most important thing. And now after they've opened it, I want to know what it is that the consumer is connecting to. And a lot of times the way you structure the email helps determine its success, not only in the open rate, because without a good subject line, they're not going to read it. But a lot of times what I'll do is if the subject line's at the top and it created the catalyst for the opens. So let's say, for sake of argument, it's the buy 3 oil changes for $199, get the 4th one free. I put that information at the very bottom of the email so that in its structure, I have maybe a sales offer at the top. I know why they opened it. They opened it because of the subject line, right? But now I've got a sales offer. I might have a pre-owned vehicle that I want to move inventory on. I might have a certified pre-owned. I might even have a brake special. But if I can get them to go all the way to the bottom to connect with what it was that they were looking for when they opened the email, now I've got them consuming a lot more information. Now I've got them considering all the different departments that I have and how they can be successful with those departments. So there's a very much an art to it. And then the science comes back to it was 20% open rate or 15% or 35%, right?
So again, summarizing it, as you called it art, there is art to it. So we'll call it the art of the email. The art of the email is, number one, Don't just blast the emails. Know your customer, custom tailor the message to the specific group of customers. And there are tools to do that, like Facebook, like Google. So there are external tools, and there are internal tools that the dealership has within their database, which may also help them identify the customer trends. So that would be the first one. The number two is the subject line. Don't underestimate the value of the huge. So that's a big second, close second, right? Yes. The subject line that generates the interest to open the email. And the third one is the structure of the email itself. The email has to be written specific, as close to the customer needs as possible, and have legitimate information, or decent design. Does design matter?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. If you, it's intuitive, but if you read something and it's top left to bottom right, left to right, top to bottom, and so if you want a key message to be conveyed, I take the subject line and I make that the bottom of the email so that the consumer scrolls through. I'm imagining the experience on their smartphone or mobile phone. But at the same time, if I have a $199 oil change offer, buy 3, get 1 free, I may want to put another offer in that upper left-hand window that attracts them to something maybe I'm doing in the community, or if it's 0% APR. It can be a retail message, it can be a community message, but yes, upper left is a key consideration set. Like if you don't know what you're trying or intending to do there, you should reconsider the email that you're crafting.
So there's no doubt it's an art of email, and it may be lost, but that's an opportunity.
I would say this too, if I may. I would caution, and I've seen it happen, dealerships from blasting their existing database over and over and over again. You end up sending out 70,000 emails over and over and over again, and it's suddenly going to get marked spam by a lot of consumers. And when it gets marked spam by a lot of consumers, then Google puts you on a blacklist, and all of a sudden your email distributions don't go out anymore, and you've got a bigger issue with the CRM and its functionality. So, be smart about it too, because I think that's why some of the dealers may have had bad experiences previously. I've seen that happen, oh my gosh, a dozen to 20, 25 times, right?
There's no doubt that there has to be an art. There has to be an art, and I'm not sure this is a well-known art here in Russia, but it's an opportunity. The next question: this advertising channel is very popular in Russia, and so it is in the United States. It's classifieds, be that for new cars or used cars or whatever the platform is. You write a lot about it in your book, how to track it, how to, we go back to, to pictures. But again, would you share some 1, 2, or 3 tricks? What's the trick to be successful specifically with classifieds?
Well, I think I shared one of them. You got to get the pictures up fast. So that's huge. I think the second trick or piece of the puzzle that helps solve is understanding that price is going to be the greatest motivator for somebody to come in and look at a vehicle. They typically will sort it price low to high. Now, what that means to me is I want to stack my inventory accordingly, because I want to have, and it's what we maybe did in the newspaper a few years back, but now it's done on the classifieds in a different way. Let's say I have 5 Toyota Corollas. I want to have at least one of them priced really, really low. Kind of that loss leader. Make sure that in the marketplace, it's the lowest, if not, let's say there's 50 of those vehicles within a 50-mile radius of my dealership. A consumer could go to any one of the stores that carries that inventory. But let's say, for sake of argument, I've got the first, second, or third lowest price in the market. That's fine, right? Because that's going to attract the attention. Just know that in my back pocket, on my inventory, once I get the customer to come in, I should have 5 or 6 more that are priced at different price levels, different price walks based on maybe one has leather, maybe the first one at the lowest price maybe has a 5-speed with no air conditioning, or whatever the case may be, right? So I just want to make sure that I attract the visibility from a marketing and advertising perspective, and then once they're at the dealership, certainly they can buy that particular unit, but there's also other options for them to consider, because a lot of people in the US come in and they don't necessarily buy the car that they initially came in on, right? It may not even be the same Toyota Corolla. They might buy a Ford F-150 or a BMW or who knows what, right? So it's just creating interest, creating consideration creates shopping. So if I don't have some unit strategically placed as a low price option, then I am just going to be in the middle of nowhere and wondering what happens, you know?
So the pictures, and the second was is the second important point is the price. So the price leader was important 20, 30 years ago, and price leader is still important to have. It has to be a legitimate car. If the customer comes in and says, I want to buy that particular car, that car has to be there. So it cannot be any Mickey Mouse. We don't have that. But there also should be an opportunity to upgrade this customer into a different car with maybe lower mileage or more equipment or whatever, and upsell the car itself.
And I will give one more key consideration set. I think the dealers are going to love this. You should reset your pricing at least once a week, because after a week occurs, the lowest price in market has typically changed, right? That lowest price has been removed. So there's a new low price, which means, ironically, you can oftentimes raise the price of your vehicle. So don't think about price as being a case where you always lower. Price is something you can sometimes increase, still maintain your low rank within the market, and create more profitability for your dealership. Additionally, a lot of consumers will be tracking these cars and they're watching this slow descent where the numbers go down, the numbers go down, the numbers go down. And then when the customer sees it goes back up, oh, wait a second. That was my car. What's going on? And they will actually come in and buy at a higher price than they otherwise would have. So, as you look at that each week, it isn't always a race to the bottom. Sometimes there's money on the table that you want to make sure that you grab.
So the third one, I just want to underscore that again, is track the market, watch the market, be as fluid as the market is, and don't be stubborn and don't get stuck on the price. Reevaluate the value of and the pricing of your inventory on a weekly basis.
Yes. All right. And adjust to the market up or down, right? It isn't always down.
Well, last year probably the up direction was more more than usual.
Oh, it's been up, yeah.
Yeah. The next question, I like asking these questions. They may be difficult, but they sort of gets us the squeeze most of the value. The social networks. I know you're a big fan of social networks. You do. You mentioned the analytics that social networks can provide for emails, and I know there's a lot of marketing done on social networks. Again, give us the tricks. Give us the juice. What's the key to successful use of social networks in a framework of car dealership advertising?
So I think the first thing you have to get your head around is that's where the people are. And one of the things I did about 10 years ago, I determined that the phone was the key to the marketing universe, right? That's what people take with them. It tracks geography. And I mean, it seems obvious now, right? But when you go all in, a decade ago, before it was really kind of the way it is now, you have to recognize that is where things are. That's where people have their apps. It's where they have their social networks. It's where they have their games. It's where they have their stocks. It's where they have their sports scores. It's where they have their banking, right? It's all on your phone. It's where you travel with airport tickets. And I don't know, tell me something you can't do on your phone, right? So now I know where the people are. And because of the geographical element of it, the GPS location element, I can now market to people at the right place, at the right time, with the right message, in the right location. And so that's the power of it. The intel is incredible. And so I look at places like TikTok has evolved very quickly, and being on point with the right message at the right time can be very helpful. But I also know that with Facebook or TikTok or Snapchat or some of those, we're typically interrupting the conversation. Google, on the other hand, is a place where people are trying to collect information. Their mind is opened. right? There's not interference. Typically, TV and even radio advertising interferes with the process that the consumer is engaging in, right? They want to watch the TV show, but wait, we've got a word from our sponsors. We'll be back after 2 minutes of commercials. But on Google, the interruption is actually something that the customer wants. So I make sure for our clients that there's kind of this minimum acceptable standard, again, because they're on their phone, because they are actively searching, because it is not an interruption, that is one of the most powerful pieces of the puzzle. And so what I then know, and this is the juice, the value, right, is below Google, stacked inside of it is YouTube. So many people are watching so much information on YouTube, and that database is actually tied together within the My Client Center of Google. And then stacked on top of that, all the display advertising is integrated as well. So a really well-constructed first-party data set can get to the right consumers more often. You're getting better odds, right? You're getting a better chance to convert that person who I already know is going to autotrader.com, who I already know likes the product that I have the ability to sell, that I already know has watched and been to my website. Now I can be back in front of them more frequently at the right times where they'll consume and where they want the information. I mean, that's the advantage. That's the huge piece of the social networks.
So the social networks, to summarize it, is I'll use this sort of description: analyze, analyze, analyze. Use the tools that are available within the social networks, be that Facebook, TikTok, Google, Snapchat, to learn about your customer and target them when they're ready, where they're ready, and for what they're ready.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That we know, though, we may know more than they know when they're ready.
Oh, okay, that's a good way to. We may know more than they know when they're ready.
Yeah, it's the predictive capabilities, right? And you think about all the machine learning and algorithms that Google utilizes to engage customers, or even Facebook's a really good example. Like, they are doing things to pull you back in. So they're doing it to help you use the app as a consumer. But then once they got that figured out a bit and they decided to monetize, right? Facebook started to advertise and said, oh, okay, if we interrupt these people in these ways, we can then expect to achieve these things. And as an example, I spend a lot of time in the actual platforms. Facebook has different campaigns to create reach, right? Awareness, high volume, low interaction. They have another campaign for landing page activity, so as to have the consumer click on the link and then go to the actual page at the dealership's website. They have engagement, which is what a lot of clients want, where it means somebody will like, it means somebody will share, it means somebody will comment. And they've even evolved into the space of doing leads. So now you can set an offer, click for offer, they get the offer, and then it submits their information to the dealership. So they have become a much more robust answer to the question of, what am I doing with my advertising dollars, right? And so with that kind of detail, I'm able to continue to shift and measure, get better at what it is that I'm doing.
That's an art of social networks. We discussed art of emails, and there is also there has to be. I'm sure that if there's an art of email, there has to be an art of social networks.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, when we write ad copy, you have to write it for the type of campaign that you're delivering. And the idea that you're going to create a single photo of the product you sell is not enough, right? So if for a BMW store that I'm working with, we have 26 different campaigns that run during a month. Each of those 26 have different ad copy. Each of those 26 have different images. Each of those 26 have different expectations. And so to do things in a way that seems unique to the customer, in a way that seems like it's a meant to be moment, you have to have a little versatility to create the vitality that brings them in to buy that car. Because still, and you could tell me, there's an emotional piece of the puzzle in terms of buying a big ticket item like a car or a house, right? Or a boat.
Jim, let me, the one thing that sort of I heard is when you were describing your marketing campaign for this BMW store, and you're saying that you're running a lot of different campaigns, and that sort of was also sounding in your previous answers. May I say that whatever the advertising campaign is, whatever the channel is, whatever the customers you're are targeting, don't let your advertising get stale or dull or repetitive. Am I correct? It just sounds like you keep on mentioning this.
No,
it has to be fresh all the time.
You have to keep it fresh. It's incredibly important. If you're not, you're wearing your customer out. I mean, the image of a cool neon green vehicle, whatever make, whatever model, look at that 1,000 times in a month. And now all of a sudden you've gone from a place of awareness to they don't want to see it anymore and they don't want to hear from you anymore. So you got to keep the message fresh. And the cool thing, the great thing, the wonderful thing about our business is we get to reinvent ourselves each and every month. So I look at those as opportunities for the clients. And I think dealerships have to look at that opportunity with their customers. And they don't need to do it in a frivolous way. There needs to be some scale to it, right? But it's how do I continue to reinvent myself? How do I continue to grow? How do I continuously improve?
Well, let me ask you about on a little bit different subject. We all hear about the effectiveness of the video messages versus static messages. Videos are recommended to be sent by mechanics to describe the required repair as a sales message, and as an introduction of the salesperson. That somebody calls you on the phone, says you got this car. Let me go around and send you a video of that car. What are the best practices of working with videos? Should they be certain length? Whatever. Can you tell us what you think are the best things to consider when you're working with video messaging?
Yeah, I think the best practice is to have some kind of relationship with the customer. And, you have to be smart about where you send that video to. If you send the video to their phone a little too early via text, it can be a little bit awkward, right? Not necessarily the best way to do an introduction per se. But if I send that same video to an email address that the consumer still picks up on the phone, it's a little bit more comfortable. And so they're more likely to consume it. I, at the dealership now, can track to know that the customer watched it, right? Did they open the email? Did they watch the video? Did they watch it 3 times, 5 times, 7 times, 20 times? Because if they watch the video 20 times, I know I've got a pretty interested customer at that point. So to me, it's a permission-based system wherein I can then know, okay, it's all right to send a text to the customer because I've set an appointment at the dealership and they're expected to arrive at 4 o'clock. And so I'm going to send them a video text and say, hi, this is Jim, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer. I want you to know that I've got the Honda Accord pulled up front for your 3 o'clock VIP appointment. I look forward to seeing you. If you're running a little bit late or you're a little bit ahead of time, just text me at this number. I'll take care of you. Also, I was headed to Starbucks. If you'd like, let me know I'm going to pick something up. I'd be happy to pick something up for you. Or if you just like water, I'll have that chilled in the cup holder of the vehicle. Right. So if you can do it in such a way that you elevate their commitment to you and make them, the customer, feel like you're authentic with, and you should be authentic with the conversation, right? That this is a VIP appointment, that you're setting aside time for them, that you're prepared for them, right? Because what typically happens at dealerships is the customer shows up and said, yeah, I had a 3 o'clock appointment for Jim. And the receptionist looks around, there's no Jim, right? And the customer's like, well, I set this up and it's, I'm here on time. Why is someone not taking care of my particular needs? And they wait 15 minutes and then they find out that Jim's out with the test drive with another customer. And then they ask, well, Sergey, can you take this customer? And so we're already losing our customer and with what we could do. So I think it's really about escalating the commitment, not only on the customer side, but on the salesperson's side. And what I know, or what I believe to be true, is you will run better gross profit per unit with that authentic connection, because in this transaction, trust is hugely important. And so the goal at the end of the day, when the art and science all comes together with the emails, right, or texting, a video, is to create trust. So that's the key. Am I creating trust?
Jim, this is something which is I think is very important. So let me make sure that I got this correctly. As the most value that you see in videos is not sending the video of a car, which they probably already saw in on static pictures, or they may be able to see. The best value that you see in sending a short video is the ability to pre-sell yourself, to set an emotional connection of sort ahead of actually meeting the customer physically, to let them know how you look, how you talk, how you move your hands, to set some sort of already, even how you look. What did you say? How did you, maybe may I ask for John, or who did you ask as a customer?
Jim, I was using self-reference here.
You have no idea how Jim looks, and you think he's, sometimes voices don't even tell that Jim may be a big guy or small guy. You expect one guy, that another one shows up. At least you. So the biggest value that you see in the videos is the ability to, ahead of meeting the customer, set the connection.
Absolutely. And them knowing who you are walking in is actually a very good thing. You're already building trust before they walk in the door. And when you compare it to the competitor down the street who is not doing the same things, it's a huge advantage. Huge.
Let me also repeat something that you said. It has to be natural. The salesperson should have an ability to sort of to be welcoming, to have a welcoming personality, welcoming voice, polite. That's just as important as the video itself.
Yes, and there's a piece of this puzzle I'll call production, to add on to what it is that you just said. If an employee is out there with the shaky camera, right, and talking and walking and it's bouncing all around, like the customers, one of the value adds here is go out and buy a gimbal. They're 50 or 60 bucks, and what they do is they stabilize as you walk. So you literally can walk around the car, and now instead of this, right, it's all smooth. And people who are coming in are looking for things to be smooth. The thing that we give up the most right now is time. And so when you'll give up, you'll trade off and pay more money if somebody utilizes your time more efficiently. So if I see somebody that's smooth off the top, I'm like, this is a pro. This is somebody that I can come in. This is somebody I can trust. This is somebody I want to do business with.
May I sort of extend the question because of the importance that you put on the ability of the salesperson to be calm and welcoming. Not everybody has this coming out of them naturally, but that does not mean that they cannot do it. There may be some sort of a learning process. The salesperson may talk many times into the phone and record the video, try to record the video, see how it looks, and improve the ability to create this short videos for the customers, correct?
Oh yeah, no, and part of it's generational, but again, everybody has their phone. So whether you're taking, if you're taking photos of your family or your grandchildren or your dog or videos, right, of the pool party that you're at or the birthday celebration that you and your family had, everybody's picked up on how to do this at some level. Sure, younger generations are going to be a little bit more efficient at this, but I don't think it's something that excludes an older generation from participation, not at all.
I see. And Jim, I have a last question. It's it's an interesting question. If you were to build a perfect marketing department for some dealership, what would you, 1, 2, or 3, as many as you wish, but not too many, but what would you list, what would you have as the key to the successful perfect marketing department, technology, process, whatever that may be?
Well, I'll actually, that's a great question. I'll tell you, I worked in dealership before, and so I guess I can go back a little bit and say these are the things that I would have done sooner or done differently, right? Almost like a wish list, right? I get three wishes. Is that kind of what you're asking? Okay. Okay, the first thing I would do, I would have somebody who is a dedicated tracker. That's all they do is track. They track the budget, they track the leads, they track the conversions, they track the open rates, they track. They're like my guide on this safari. They are not somebody to make decisions, right? They're just somebody to keep up with all the data. Because without a tracker, you don't have a chance. There's just too many things, and it'll drive you crazy. And so now you're making judgments on resource allocation based on your relationships with people, which are important, but you also need to be considering what value is being returned. Is this monetizing? And I do go into great detail on this in Car Dog Millionaire, but it's a huge piece of the puzzle. Until you get a tracker, you're just kind of wishing and hoping and praying. And that's not how I want my money to work for me if I'm in a dealership, right? The second thing, and this is more new age and a more recent development, and I talked about it a little bit on this call, first party data. I've got to start figuring that out, because when the third party cookies go away, I'm going to be more dependent on other people than I would ever want to be. So that entrepreneurial spirit that is part and of the automotive community, it's within the DNA. I have to look at the value of my first party data. And so whether I like emails or not, I have to know that those are the things, and I'm not trying to buy external databases. I'm just starting to collect on all the service drive repair orders. I'm starting to collect on all the new car sales. I'm starting to collect on all the used car sales. And I'm actually building my own first party data set. And then with your permission, I'm going to take that third wish and kind of wrap it up and say, I would have a service mindset on two levels. Okay. So this is like part A and part B of my service mindset. I've got to get things functioning on the service drive because it's a more profitable piece of my business. So I think that's really critically important. And that's just fundamental. Make sure I'm doing service advertising. I've got a piece of my budget allocated for service, right? Because in some way, new car and used car sales, at least especially today, are taking care of themselves to a large extent due to the economies of supply and demand. But on the service mindset, it extends further than the service drive. It actually reaches over into what I would call operational advertising on the sales side. What I'm trying to do is help my clients or my dealerships win. And so if I have a unique selling proposition that I can convey to my customers that's different than my competitors down the street, I need to think about that service that I'm providing to them and then deliver that operational advertising mindset. If I hear a dealer, and I hear it, right, because they do compete on price. If all we're doing is competing on price, we can't win all the games, right? Because we can lose on price, but we can win on operational advertising. And as a really good example, one of our clients here in the Houston area has a 3-day return policy on used vehicles. And I'm not saying that's the right thing for Russia, but that's what's happening in the US based on Carvana, right? And so as a dealership with 4 other Mercedes-Benz stores, he's the only one that has a 3-day return policy on used cars. If you're not happy with that vehicle purchase, whichever comes first, 3 days or 150 miles, you could bring it back to the dealership for a full refund, right? What it does is you got to get that message out. And I know there's risk in that execution. So then you also have to have a team that is A, aware of this, B, sells it when they come to the dealership, and then C, can execute if in that rare instance the customer bought something that they don't want, that they want to return. And those are be my 3 wishes: the tracker, right, the first party data, and then executing on a service mindset.
Since this question is important, let me sort of make sure that I understand. The tracker. The tracker, the first thought that comes naturally, why do you need a tracker? There's a set of reports that you can get. Now, the tracker is somebody who can actually look through the reports, analyze it, pre-analyze it, and question some data, or bring certain parts of the report to your attention. That's the reason you need the tracker, not just a set of pre-configured reports, correct?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I used to work for Nike corporate and Toyota corporate, right? So I'm at Toyota corporate, and we had a $50 million budget. And so I go into my VP of marketing and I say, hey, I want to hire somebody, because I was overseeing all the agency activity. I said, I want to hire somebody in the media division that oversees this $50 million budget. So I interviewed a few people. He wasn't all that excited about it. I came back and she wanted six figures. And he goes, oh my God, we're not going to pay somebody six figures to just do the media. I said, boss, are you crazy? We're spending $50 million. I said, I will make up that million. I'll make up that 100,000 5 times over. He goes, you're telling me you're going to save us 500,000. I said, nobody's watching. There's $50 million flying out the window and we're just cutting checks. So if you're at that dealership, and it doesn't have to be 50 million. I mean, if you're spending 50,000 and you don't have somebody watching over what it is that's going on. And I don't mean give this to somebody who already has a job. This is not something you give to the BDC manager. This is not something you give to the accountant, right? This is something that, somebody that in US dollar terms, 2,500, 3,000, they don't even have to come into the dealership. It might even be better that they're not there, right? So you can actually hire them. And now what's happening is, whether you're spending 50,000, 100,000, or $15,000, you're getting better traction. You're getting better action on the deal. And in the book, Car Dog Millionaire, I say allocate 2% of your total budget. And so I not only believe in it, I'm just telling you, I've lived it and it matters. And I will tell you, at the end of the day, I did save Toyota 500,000, because you know what we did? We started tracking what it was that we were doing. And then we got a better return on the investments that we were making. That's why I do it.
I think I understand it correctly right now. The second thing that you said, and that I can totally relate to, is the first party data, which is the database of your existing customers, be that the sales customers, service customers, and that goes back to our very first question, to make sure that you analyze who they are, what they are, pay attention to what their needs might be, and once you have this information analyzed, work with this data, be that emails or whatever channel that you use to target them or go after, whether that be a special or just to stay in touch. First party data, and that's relational marketing. And the third thing is you split it into two. You obviously underscored the importance of the service drive and happy service customers. We all know that, if the customer services the car at the dealership, they're much more likely to buy a next car than if the customer just takes the car somewhere else.
And I should say, you have some great interviews with Jim Roche on that topic. They're wonderful. And I would encourage dealers to watch those as well.
Yes. He is very much into a customer-centric model. Take care of the customer. But the other thing that you said, and that was the B part of your third answer.
My wish list.
Your wish list, third part of your wish list. Operational advertising. So there has to be the dealership. Let me just how I heard it. Okay. The dealership has to identify something specific to them. Be that 3-day return policy, be that free car detailing or sandwich or whatever.
Free oil changes, free lifetime warranty.
Yeah, something that is specific to them. And
price match guarantee. I'm just giving you a few that I'm working with right now. Yeah.
Right. So it has to be something, and that again cannot get stale. It may be updated every other month or so, but there has to be an operational message that has to be carried to the customer through whatever channels they use. So the operational advertising, getting the message about the dealership, is you find that of a great value, correct?
It's incredible, because until your competition starts doing it, right, you are creating and cementing that at the point of purchase, right? That's the thing. I can go in with confidence knowing that if something was wrong with a car, I feel better about buying it, right? You're reducing the hurdle for a customer to do business with you. That same client also has a 30-day exchange. So if after 30 days with a used car, you don't like it, you can come back and return it. Now you don't get a refund. You actually have to buy a like vehicle at the same amount. But that aspect, I can't tell you how many more used cars they sell because they have that policy in place. And when you think about the other 4 or 5 dealerships in town, why would I go do business with them? I wouldn't. I got this guy, and I know I drive further for a used car. So whatever that distinguishing characteristic is for your store, man, like that's a velvet hammer. Just keep pounding it. You got to decide what it is, and then you got to execute against it. But then if you can deliver on it, you're going to create not only customers who come in because of it, but then people will talk about it, right? If you do a smooth 3-day return, they're going to tell all their friends, right? And now you're driving additional business that's free, if you will, because of the word of mouth. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Once you commit and decide to do something, like Southwest Airlines here in the US does not charge fees for the bags that you check. How much easier is it to do business with them? It's like a no-brainer. I'm going to Southwest. And if for some reason they don't fly to the city that I want to fly to, in this case, if for some reason they don't have the unit in operation that I want to buy, then maybe I'll go do business with somebody else. But I want to go to somebody I know and trust. And that's what operational advertising can really do for you.
Jim, I want to make sure that our listeners get that clear. You mentioned used cars, the return policy, or some other advertising, attractive advertising about used cars. It doesn't have to be used cars. It has to be something special about the dealership. It can be an oil change. It can be something that you want everybody to know that's what you do for your customers. Be that something that you do this month or this week or something, but it's something operational that you do for all your customers that most of the other dealerships around you don't do, or maybe no one else does.
Yeah, and the best ones I can tell you are for lifetime warranties on new car purchases on the new car side. They also have oil changes, for life. I guess you can't call them free in some areas, but as long as the customer's with us, they can bring that car in. As long as the car is with us, I suppose, right, for the lifetime of that vehicle. And that's something that just keeps you connected to the customer. And you can even book it to part of the deal, right? If you want to put a $400 charge on it and find out whatever your break even is, and the customer says, well, I don't really want oil changes for life. I'm buying this from out of state or out of country. Well, that's fine. Take the 400, move it away, and let that live and have someone else have that experience, not that particular customer at that particular time. So it's just about being operationally ready and then operationally executing. But you got to convey the message to the consumer, and it can't be something that you're afraid to share. It's got to be something that you're willing to throw down the gauntlet on and say, this is who I am and this is what we are about.
This is great information, Jim. I think it was a very, very useful, not just interesting, but very useful interview, and there's a lot of information that I learned. So I wanted to thank you very much for your time, for willingness to share this knowledge with the Russian Automotive Dealers Association and all Russian automotive community. We like this information, and we will try to use it to the best of our capabilities.
Sergey, I always enjoy spending time with you, man. So thanks for having me with you today. Appreciate it. And to all the Russian dealers, all the best.
Jim, thank you very much. You have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Sergey.